CM Punk has finally gotten his long-awaited wish, a main event at WrestleMania. Punk has spoken about this for well over a decade as one of the final things that he needs to do in order to complete his wrestling journey. And in this video, we're going to take a look at exactly what led up to Punk main eventing WrestleMania, why it wasn't likely at one point, and what it means for a wrestler many claim to be the best in the world. I'm Umar Q for Wrestle Vibes. Be sure to smash that thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. This is CM Punk's main event journey. While at one point it seemed as unlikely as could be that this moment could come, on April 20th, it does look like CM Punk will finally main event WrestleMania. And while there's many people who would say that Punk is not the real main event or main eventing night one doesn't necessarily count, the fact of the matter remains that CM Punk will be closing a show that at one point he never believed he would be able to close. If you go back and look at some of the interviews that CM Punk had done after his departure from WWE, most notably that infamous Colt Cabana interview where he went off on WWE for well over an hour, one of the key takeaways from that discussion was Punk's desire at one point to main event Mania. He even discussed this in a way where he wanted to main event one of the years where Rock and Cena were scheduled the last match on the show. In the lead up to WrestleMania 29 in 2013, CM Punk had been riding a nearly year-long WWE Championship streak, and it was about to come to an end at the Royal Rumble, but Punk tried to make a last-ditch effort to stop that. He wanted his WrestleMania main event one way or another, even pitching the idea that they would have an elimination three-way between Cena, Punk, and The Rock, where CM Punk would be eliminated very early on in the match. And it wasn't just a desire that Punk had. This seemed to be an obsession with the main event of Mania, and it's for good reason. In 2012 and 2013, there were arguably no better wrestlers in the world than CM Punk. You had people outside of WWE who were making a name, but in WWE, CM Punk was doing the legwork to change the perception of what WWE was at the time. In years past, WWE had seemingly gone all in on the idea that John Cena was going to be the big superhero that wins nearly every match, something that most wrestling fans had grown very tired with in the lead up to what would eventually be Punk's pipe bomb in 2011. And that pipe bomb elevated him to such a degree that in 2012 and 2013, he really was the hottest thing on the show. What didn't help things, though, was that Vince McMahon only saw Punk as a star to a limit. He did not see CM Punk in the same light as he saw Dwayne Johnson. He did not see CM Punk in the same light that he saw John Cena. He didn't even see CM Punk in the same light as people like Randy Orton. Was it because Punk was unconventional? Was it because he lived a different lifestyle? Was it because CM Punk made a name for himself outside of WWE before appearing for the company? These things may sound innocuous, they may sound benign, they may sound like things that don't matter given the current perspective that WWE has of things like that, but back then they really did. And it did seem much like what would happen with Bryan Danielson in the lead up to WrestleMania 30. CM Punk was not a star that WWE really wanted or intended to push. He was someone that they were forced to push. And I think that there's a little bit of Punk that knew that and was always doing the extra work to try to position himself as that star, to try to position himself as someone who was in the same ballpark as The Rock or John Cena. But the fact of the matter is that WWE executives at the time were never going to see it like that. They were always going to put Punk into a box. They were always going to put Punk at a certain level. And despite having a match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 29 that cleared anything else on the show, it did not matter. CM Punk was still just a great wrestler who was selling a whole bunch of merch, who WWE did not intend to be the guy. And that was a big reason, along with much of the health concerns that he had back then, as to why CM Punk would eventually leave WWE. And we all know he eventually went and joined AEW in 2021, having one of the greatest returns in the history of professional wrestling at Rampage, The First Dance. And while his run in AEW didn't necessarily go as many expected it would, it was very unlikely that Punk would ever go back to WWE, let alone main event a WrestleMania. And even if you go back to CM Punk's words, he was not about to go back and main event night one of a buy one, get one 3-night extravaganza or whatever he said that night that everyone seems to be talking about.
And listen, pal, if you think the grass is so greener on the other side, be my guest. Go ahead, leave. Main event night 4 of a buy one, get one free extravaganza, and then get released faster than you last in the sack.
But he got back to WWE, and it seemed inevitable that this would come up, the idea of Punk main eventing Mania. It is something that, while he hasn't brought up too much in interviews and he has downplayed, they are leaning into for the storyline. And despite this match not being for a world championship, despite this match not being for the WWE championship, it doesn't matter. When you have stars like CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns embroiled in what seems to be a pretty angry and heated feud, you could make a very good argument that this match does deserve to be the main event. You have 3 of the biggest stars that the company has. You have the story of Punk's main event on the line. You have the story of Rollins and Punk, Roman and Punk, Roman and Seth, the history between these 3 men, where they've come from, how Punk played a large role in bringing them into WWE. There's so much to be told here, and there's more than an argument that this deserves to be the main event, despite Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble, but that's a story for a different day. Point is, CM Punk's rise to the main event of WrestleMania is one of the most unlikely stories that has ever been told in professional wrestling. And the beautiful part is that it is something that has blurred the lines of reality and fiction. It has meshed perfectly what people look for in professional wrestling today. The reality and emotion that is pouring out of CM Punk isn't just a story, isn't just part of an act, it is real. When Paul Heyman told him that he was going to main event WrestleMania, there was a part of Punk, despite probably hearing that news beforehand, that knew that it was real. And now he has a chance to prove exactly why, over a decade ago, he should have been the main event. He has a chance to prove exactly why, a decade ago, people were talking about him being the real face of WWE, and he has a chance to prove, just like a decade ago, that he is the best in the world.